welcome and good evening to the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for February 18th, 2020. Item number 1, if we could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here.
Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Mayor Mars. Here. Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Thank you very much. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. Any changes, corrections, additions, Mr. Reynolds?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the only change would be moving 10A1, the monthly financial review, off of the normal agenda and putting it on the consent agenda.
Okay. Councilor Contreras?
Motion to approve agenda as modified.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Whiting. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, motion carries, thank you. Item number 4, consent agenda, and that will stand as modified with 10A1, which is our monthly financial report for January 2020 will be added to consent. Are there any other changes? Councilor Lehman.
Remove 4D2,
4D2.
and I'll move the consent agenda as modified. Second.
I have a motion and a second by Councilor Brennan. No other changes. Before we would vote on our modified consent agenda, we would read it into the public record. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These are the consent agenda items for February 18th of 2020. 4A1 adopts resolution number R2020-TAC010, which authorizes submission of voting equipment grant application. 4A2 approves the minutes from the February 4th, 2020 meeting. 4B1 authorizes the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus equipment from Municipal Emergency Services Incorporated in the amount of $49,896. 4C1 adopts resolution R2020-TAC013, which accepts the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development Contamination Cleanup Grant in the amount of $332,732. 4D1 approves the purchase of a skid steer loader from Ziegler Incorporated in the amount of $6,400. 4D3 adopts resolution number R2020-TAC015, which approves plans and orders the advertisement for bids for the 2020 full-depth pavement reconstruction project, which is CIF TAC20-TAC004. 4D4 adopts resolution number R2020-TAC002, which approves plans and orders the advertisement for bids for the 2020 bituminous overlay project, which is CIF TAC20-TAC002. And finally, 10A1 is the monthly financial review.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I have a motion and a second for the modified consent agenda. The modified consent agenda has been read into the public record. There would be no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving ahead to item number 5. Now we'd like to call on any resident that would like to come forward and speak on an item not on the agenda tonight. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome on an item not on the agenda. Seeing none then, we would move ahead to item number 6, which is business removed from consent agenda, and that is 4D2, Unbridled Avenue project, and Steve will present. Oh, or I apologize. Councilor Lehman, you have questions?
Mayor, I took it off consent.
Woke Steve up, though.
When this project was first approved, it was approved with the understanding that the developer was going to take out the loan and get reimbursed with TIF. And now we have the improvements and what is it, 7.2 million. City selling bonds at, risk to the taxpayers, and then getting reimbursed from the TIF. So I disagree with that concept, and therefore I'm going to vote against it.
Counselor Whiting?
Make a motion to approve Resolution R 2020-014, approving plans and ordering the advertisement of bids for Unbridled Avenue Project CIF 20-014, Project 11.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Did you have any specific questions on this matter?
No, I just stated my reason.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Motion on the table, second. Further discussion? Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you very much. Moving ahead then to 7A, business incentive for Cherney/Opus. And I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Further discussion? Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries, and Michael will present. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. To work, there we go. So Mayor and Council, this is a tax abatement agreement for the Brickyard Exchange at 69 Veerling with Opus and Cherney. This is the site right here. The EDA is selling the site to Opus for $1.65 million. The other sites we have already, Doggy Doos is right here. This is the rehab facility, and this is the site we currently have under contract to MWF.
We're not seeing that pointer.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Councilmember. This is the Doggy Doo site that's been opened. This is the treatment facility. They have 2 more phases. And then this is the site we currently have under MWF, and this is the site that we're selling to Opus. So this is the site the EDA currently has as an outlot. This is the site of the former truck stop that had contamination. We just recently did do some additional test borings out there, and Terracon, our consultants working with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, there's still active vapors in this end from the gas releases that occurred there over the years from the truck stop. So Opus is basically buying the property that's in the dark outline here that's currently been platted. We'll be back to you. They're going to come back and ask to take this piece of right-of-way and abandon it and move this line out because it created some issues with the corner of the building. So you'll see that in a month or so. But this is the building that they're proposing right now for Cherney Industries. It's 130,000 square foot office, research and development, manufacturing, and distribution facility. They're currently located in Edina. They would be moving here and then adding 50 jobs over 5 years, 20 in the first 2. So this would actually be the front of their building facing Veerling. This would be parking for their employees. This is their truck court. And then Opus would be building a speculative building on this parcel. You'll also be seeing a minor subdivision. They will be dividing this lot into 2, so the tax abatement will only apply to the Cherney building and not to the speculative building. And these are some of the concept renderings that Opus has been working with Cherney on. So this will be their corporate headquarters. So they have their offices. So let's see if I can get this to work here. This is where the office portion of the building will be. This is kind of their machine shop. This is a room where they have a ability to bring in a water tank. People are here from their parent company here tonight. Cindy Griner's here, and she'll talk about kind of what they do and what their kind of world reach is. This is a pretty significant facility. They've outgrown their facility in Edina. I think they've been there 30 plus years, and so this is a pretty big move for them, and I think it's going to help them be able to not only retain their current employees, but attract a lot from the local area to work here. So with that, I will answer any questions and then introduce the folks here from the...
Questions of staff? Counselor Lehman?
Thanks, Mayor. The first question is, if you can put that back up.
Yes,
when-
sir.
When we first talked about this site, we were talking about the entrance to the community visible from 69 to 169. And if we could see them building renderings again. So that would be the west, I believe, and the south elevations?
So Mayor and Council, you won't really be able to see, so this elevation here is the truck dock, and this is the side that's covered by the wall that's for the sound wall, and we're working with, this is their office portion here, so the sound wall starts about here. So this actually can't be seen. This will be kind of the 69 view. And then Veerling, which is kind of the most active view, is what you'll see right here. We'll be working on the site plan with Opus to, if I can get this to work. So that sound wall sits about here. To plant some oversized evergreen trees in this area, and then also there'll be landscaping this, so you won't be able to see the truck court except through this entrance right here. And then we have a lot of extra trees left for the site, and that's why we're working with Terracon on what we can do with this. But our plan is to basically have Opus landscape the rest of the site once we get clearance from the Minnesota Pollution Control, and long-term do a entrance marker to the city, which council talked about, similar to the one that's on the backside of the statue in downtown.
Okay, more?
Well, so the buildings aren't going to be part of the visual coming into Shakopee in this
In that-
project?
Mayor and council, there's a lot of grade here, so you're kind of up in the air here, and it comes down, and so the grade, I believe, goes this way towards the back here. So this will actually be kind of depressed. We worked with Opus and their design team, so the part that faces kind of old brickyard 69 here. So this building's entrance actually will be here. So the kind of most front-facing building actually will have glass and doorways on this side. Cherney's kind of hidden from the back, so we made an effort to kind of make this the main entrance. So that would be this view right here. So this is a view you'll see as you come down Veerling. And this is actually, under our new design standards, you'll notice there's a lot more windows in this. And this is also all integral color concrete. None of this is painted.
Counselor Whiting?
Yeah, that was one of my questions. These are the tip-up walls that we had talked about and redesigned a little bit, but they've added the windows, so that makes it okay with our new standard?
Mayor and council, correct. So you also see there are some, it's hard to tell at this small scale of the rendering here, if we get this to work, but there is a step in and a step out on the building, both here and on the back side. And you'll notice on this building actually steps, so you'll have a different flavor kind of on this corner, and also has a corner that kind of is chamfered. So this will all be glass and doorways along here. So you can see the indentations here on the plan. There's two here and there's two in the front. And the building also has some, as you can see from the designs here, some areas that kind of pop up.
Yeah, just slightly out of scope here. I agree with Counselor Lehman that the showcase of these buildings is important on our 69 entrance there, and I think the Opus building to the west, southwest there, that will have a little more visibility is more pertinent. And then the outlot, we've always talked about a monument that we could put on top of it as long as we don't disturb it. It's kind of off topic here on that, but I think that's what we'd like to see. Back on the proposal, I just want to review, this is 115 jobs that would be relocated here to Shakopee from their Edina headquarters.
Correct. I think there's 117, it's 115 full-time equivalents. They do run 3 shifts at this facility, and when they have their presentation, you'll see they have the kind of jobs people talk about. There's a lot of kind of R&D jobs, a lot of machinist jobs. You'll see the CNC machines they have, and they'll be moving a fairly large robot that they use to make these pieces over here. So one of the things that was a surprise to all of us is they kind of said, we'll move in next year. Well, next year kind of creeped forward because this is their main manufacturing plant, so they have to keep the one running in Edina while they build this and then transfer everything over here without kind of skipping a beat. So they'll actually be occupying the building likely in February and having full production up by April. So it's a pretty compressed time frame. Because this is a new kind of state-of-the-art facility, hopefully it will go smoothly, but it will take some coordination to basically move all your production from one city to here.
Counselor Whiting?
Now, typically, I'm not about adding a tax incentive to draw jobs from another city, but you're saying Edina didn't have the capacity to keep up with their growth.
Mayor and council, they're in I think probably one of the earliest Opus facilities that's over there, and they've clearly outgrown it. They're kind of out into the parking lot with stuff, and it's not a facility that could be rehabbed, so there's really no place for them to go in Edina. There's actually, and Opus just bought it the other day, or have it under contract. There's one other large parcel, which they're building a warehouse and distribution facility with 130,000 square feet in Eden Prairie, so this is the next site. I think council made it really clear, and the EDA made it clear, we wanted this to be a job generator and not a warehouse and distribution site. So we were lucky enough to kind of have them jump Eden Prairie, Edina to come to us because we really wanted this to be an employment center and not another warehouse and distribution site.
And to that point, I noticed the 20 jobs were going to be coming with the building, or more or less within the first year, I think it was, or first
Mayor and council, first 2 years. Yep.
first 2 years, and then over the next 5 years, there was going to be included with that 20 a total of 50.
Mayor and council, that's correct. There's 50 jobs, and the agreement that you have before you also has clawback provisions. So if they don't meet them, similar to what we've had, there's a cure clause in there. If they don't meet it, it dials back the taxes to us.
And the jobs that were created are at that rate of pay that we are looking for in our contract.
Mayor and council, yeah, there's a blended rate that's required of $20 an hour plus benefits. You'll hear tonight that they have a pretty robust benefits program. I think we'll be well over that. And I think that given
Well,
the current...
it doesn't include the benefits. The benefits are
Correct.
the gravy on top of what
Yep.
we require, so,
I think here tonight, including benefits, they're probably at 29 plus.
okay. Thank you.
And this would be for 9 years for a marked total of 459,000.
Mayor and council, that's correct. It's capped at that. So if that comes in 6 years or whatever, that's the most they can get.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, if I can get a couple of questions out. On the, first, does this abatement take into the school and the county portion, or just city?
Mayor and council, this is only the city's portion.
Okay.
The school district to the county and everyone else stays intact.
Okay, second question, Mayor, if I may. On the second page of this document, of the first page of the resolution, third paragraph, it says 20 jobs within 2 years. And then in the actual contract, on page, oh, I circled it, where'd I go with it? It says, page 10, it says 30 within 5 years. And in other places in the document, it says 50 within 5 years.
I think I've read this twice too, and got a little, it took me a while, but it's 20 additional jobs within 2 years, and then an additional within 5 for a total of 50
Correct.
at the end of 5. It's just staggered.
Correct. It's 20 the first 2 years, 30 between the end of year 2 and year 5.
For a total of 50 in 5
Yes, sir.
years? Okay. And then the last question on fourth paragraph of the resolution under 1.04, this tax abatement is being used for equipment purchase?
I think that, Mayor and council, that's probably an error. It's equipment purchase and building improvements.
The reason I ask is because many times the state has, in the past, the state has
Helped.
done some tax thing with the equipment side of it.
Councilmember, that's correct. On this project, there is no state involvement whatsoever.
No deed involvement?
Nope.
Yeah.
And then last question, Mayor. $20 an hour times 2,080 hours is what, 41,000 gross? Subtract taxation and Social Security and stuff. What's the net?
I will leave that to the Cherney folks to answer.
All right, I'll hold my question there.
This is very similar roughly to KEB that we did a couple months ago or 6 months ago.
Yep, Mayor and Council, that was fewer jobs.
Fewer jobs.
Keeping the existing jobs they had. This is basically a complete corporate relocation, brand new building, complete tenant upfit in the inside, et cetera. So a little different, and this is kind of our first major new company, and I think I looked last, it was 6 or 7 years.
Other questions? I have one more. The Cherney is currently in our community already on the east end, are they not? Would that facility be closing?
Mayor and Council, I do not believe they are here. That there are two Cherneys. There was a Cherney Construction Company that was here. This is Cherney Industries. It's owned by a holding corporation that's the largest plumbing supply company in the U.S.
Separate companies?
Yep.
Thank you. If there'd be no other further questions for staff, would Cherney or Opus or their representatives like to come forward and make comment on their application? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Phil Katna with Opus as one of the lead developers for this opportunity. And maybe I just quickly, before introducing Cherney, just say, again, as we go back, when we first talked with the city and the EDA about trying to bring this property to the market and kind of realizing the vision, I would contend this is kind of a culmination of those efforts. And we're certainly excited to be introducing Cherney here today, because we do believe that this is in keeping with kind of the goals and the objectives that were set out in collaboration with the city and the EDA. Secondly, maybe just as a small point of clarification, Cherney is actually leasing space in a building here in the Shakopee community under a short-term lease. So maybe to put a finer point on that, it's not like that's going away. That's still going to be space that's going to be in the community for other users to potentially use for different uses. I can certainly let Cherney talk about some of those specifics, but I did just want to make that simple point of clarification. So with that, I will introduce the representatives here from Cherney. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. I'm Cindy Greiner. I'm with Odie. I'm director of their corporate facilities, and this is Dave Byron, who's general manager of Cherney. And we just thought we would go through a little bit just what does Odie and Cherney have to do with each other, and then what Cherney can offer to a community that it decides to relocate to. Let me see if I can figure this out. First of all, Odie is the umbrella company. Cherney is one of the family of businesses underneath Odie. So Cherney does operate independently of itself. The company, Odie itself, has been around for over 100 years. We were formed in 1916 by L.R. Odie, and it was an automotive company at the time. And we have evolved into a plumbing, manufacturing, and distribution center, which is both domestic and international. And we deliver high-quality products, as I believe Michael said. We are a leader in the industries that we are in. We have 8 different brands. Cherney is one of our leading brands. And again, we deal with contractors, both commercial, residential, do-it-yourselfers. So we span quite a large arena of customers. A little bit just on the slide itself, our original headquarters versus where we are today. We are based in Cleveland, Ohio. We're very committed to Cleveland. We've been in that location for over the 100 years, as well as having 5 facilities itself just in the Cleveland area. We're very committed to the communities that we are in. And I know one of the comments before was Edina, and yes, we've been very committed to there since we acquired the company, but there is not the space there for our growth. Dave has done a fantastic job in that facility of creatively using the space and growing that space, but we cannot continue to grow at the pace we are anticipating at that facility. So unfortunately, we do need to find something else. And we do have a temporary warehouse in Shakopee, which became of interest to us, the city itself, because when we relocated there last year, we found the ease of use of dealing with the community was very nice. It was refreshing to deal with that. Those jobs would not be eliminated. They would be relocated to this new facility. So it's not like you'd be losing those jobs. little bit just the company. Again, they are ingrained in their purpose, values, and visions, and that is very important to them. It's integrity, it's quality, it's making things the best we can make for everyone that we deal with. This is a footprint of our network. We are in 18 different communities, like I said, both internationally and domestic. We have 9 manufacturing facilities, 18 distribution facilities. We have 2 just office-only locations, and then we also have an OD training university where we bring in customers, salespeople into Cleveland and share our new products and how to use our products to the best of their abilities. So we're really excited about the opportunity to combine the 2 locations in Minneapolis, gain those efficiencies. I'll let Dave talk a little bit more about what is Churney. I made him bring a show and tell.
I filmed the show and tell when I was a kid, so I get to do it again when I'm 50 years old. But this is what we make. This is one of our products. It's a underground testing plug. I mean, you guys use them in this municipality. When Henches did the work down at your water treatment facility, you use our plugs. Yep, they expand. So because you can't tell people to stop using water or stop using the other facilities. So you use these things when you're doing construction to bypass and to block, so they can do the work. So just a little
Would that product be manufactured here in Shakopee?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
And they come in all sizes.
And this is manufactured on our robot that Michael brought up. So we're the only people in the world that make these plugs with a robot, which we developed with some partners last year. And we want to bring a second robot in when we get this new facility, because I don't have any room in Edina right now to put that in place.
He's not on the head count, though, the robot.
Our best employee, though, doesn't go to the bathroom, doesn't take any days off.
He
but,
does
you know.
exceed the $20 an hour, though.
Oh,
go up to
sure. You know, we've been around, Churney's been around for 57 years. But bought by Odie in 1990. We have 66,000 square feet in Edina, and we have the 30,000 square feet in Shakopee currently, so we're at about 90,000 square feet. It still isn't enough for the growth we're enjoying. I've been there 6 years. We're averaging about 10% plus a year growth, and we expect that to continue with infrastructure like Flint, Michigan, and all those issues going on. There's a lot of infrastructural rebuilding going on throughout the country and throughout the world, so we have a big part in that. There's a picture of the markets where we sell. You can see we're worldwide, all over Asia, Europe, Australia, and pretty much everywhere in North America. And we're known as the world leader in this space. So it's been pretty exciting 6 years. Our distribution channels, you know, basically through all the main plumbing and waterworks distribution, pretty entrenched and, you know, growing, like I said, growing like crazy. Our biggest thing, and we talked about earlier, the kind of jobs we're going to create. I mean, we do our own R&D in this facility, so develop all these plugs from the engineering piece to the trials and the building them. And we've insourced, since I've been at Churney, and this is some of the equipment we have currently in our facility in Edina, we've insourced 30% of our parts that were made elsewhere, made in China, brought them back to the United States to make them here. Proves the quality of our product, because these things can be pretty dangerous if you make them wrong. If the metal ends are made wrong or whatever, you can hurt people, you can destroy the job site. So we felt like bringing the stuff back and making it in the United States is the way to do it, control the quality, and to be able to deliver for our customers. So that's kind of been our mantra for the last 5 years, is bringing all our products back and making them, so we're making them here in Shakopee. And this is our winding robot, one of its kind in the world. We patented the stuff now, and we're gonna hopefully have our second one here once we get our new facility. So, subject to your questions, that's what I have.
You notified your workforce?
We have. They know we're moving. Honestly, we've been out of space for about 5 years. We've been creatively trying to move stuff around. We moved our distribution to Cleveland for a while. That wasn't working with our customers, because if somebody's having water main breaks somewhere, they want it tomorrow morning. And that's how our business runs. The rest of Odie doesn't run that way. So that's why we rented the facility in Shakopee so we could have control of our distribution to service our customers.
Questions? Yes, Counselor Whiting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very familiar with Odie's products as a do-it-yourselfer. They're out in the market there. The product you have, that's a little beyond my scope, but
Mine too.
Clearly a need. And I want to ask you folks, and I do this to everybody that comes before us asking for a tax abatement or TIF. You know, the community would be backing you, giving up some taxes. This property is a little unique, but in a sense, giving up their taxes for you to bring your jobs to Shakopee. What is your company going to give back to the community?
Well, it's a good question. And like Cindy brought up, the Odie company itself is very involved in the community. I mean, right now we do the Earth Day in Edina. We plant trees. We've worked at the food shelf down there in, well, not the one in Edina, but the one in Hopkins. And so our employees are very community oriented. You know, they do the cleanups. They have cleanups in Edina. We do stuff like that. We support the United Way once a year. We have a fundraiser with our employees we have the United Way rep come in and we give money, things like that. So our company tries to give back to the community in those ways. And also the job creation, and somebody brought that up, these are the kind of jobs that, when people are driving a forklift around all day, they just don't see where they're gonna go. So we pride ourselves in bringing them into a company that's growing with a good atmosphere where they feel like I might start out as a machine operator, but there's somewhere I can go. I can grow in this company. And people like that, they get more excited about it. Their families get excited. We have a lot of family events. So we kind of, it's kind of like a big family anyhow, the way that we operate. And it works out really well. So it's a place people want to work. People in Edina, you can't find anyone to work in Edina in a place like this, and somehow we managed to do it. So we're excited to go somewhere where there's a bigger pool to draw from.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, thank you. My question is going to focus just on the jobs and the pay. And some of this is not directed toward the company. I don't know the inner workings of the company, but I know what our business subsidy policy is. Part of my question might be focused more toward this body and its business subsidy policy in general. This says no less than an average of 20 per hour exclusive of benefits. I'm just going to openly think here, if we're going to give up almost $500,000 of taxpayer money for jobs, I certainly don't want to be subsidizing jobs that are eligible for other taxpayer subsidized services. So if I'm doing the math, $20 per hour, $41,000 a year for full time. That's gross. Subtract out taxes, Social Security, and FICA. We'll be talking about $30-some thousand a year, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And I don't know what the cutoff is for eligibility for housing assistance and medical assistance and stuff like that, but this is probably a bigger discussion for us as a body in our business subsidy policy, because it certainly doesn't make sense to give a tax credit for jobs that are going to need more taxpayer assistance.
No, and we've talked about moving our marker up, right?
Yep.
And
So
that's
Mayor,
important.
the question to you, not knowing the inside of your company, can you tell me more about these jobs, the wages, maybe the benefits? Sell me on why I should do this.
As far as economically?
Tax subsidy for these jobs.
So that if you look at, now, right now, we're averaging $20 an hour where we are in Edina.
Well, actually, we're averaging about $23.67.
I mean, but-
is the average, and that's base. That's not including the benefits package.
And that's the whole package. So our current operation is 50% that and 50% manual artisan work, making making plugs by hand. And basically probably the same way they made them 50 years ago. So our mission, my mission, is to continue to move toward automation because frankly, they don't make people like that anymore. They want to come in and do that kind of work. So when you look at our average salary, the jobs that are the lower paying jobs that make our, because the average is 23, those jobs are going to go away over time. And when they're going to become more technical jobs, which are on the other end of the average. So that's the way that we're going with our company now. That's what I've been charged to do. And 6 years we've done quite a good job, but I think we have another 8 to go to really get there, honestly. Our benefit package for the employee, very strong. I mean, I was in the military before, and when I got out, I was stunned by how much you have to pay. Because when you have to pay for healthcare, when you have a kid, you go crazy. How much is that? This is the best company for medical benefits I worked for in 7 companies, and I worked for Target. I worked for a couple other pretty big companies, and so our medical benefits are top notch. They do 401k match. We have flexible work day for the employees, so we don't, we give them flexibility to take care of family stuff. So really Odie's a very progressive company, and that's kind of the way we treat employees. We want to make it someplace that they don't mind coming back to tomorrow.
More? I think the key is, though, that, most of us are measured on our job about our salary plus benefits and combined compensation.
Yes, sir.
I was breaking apart your stats here at a little over 50 jobs that are down around the bottom or down the lower level, research and development. And then the 50 jobs that you bring in within 50 years, or 5 years, excuse me, what type of jobs would those be?
They'd be a full gambit. We'd have machine shop operators, CNC programmers. We'd have R&D, because we're continuing to grow our R&D department. Probably, I'd say 4 or 5 engineers more. That we have 6 engineers right now, but as we continue to develop these, we'll bring in more of those. And then there'll be robot operators, and we call it autoclave department, because this is a small plug that I brought. We have plugs that are as big as, they're 10 feet long, and they're big. So those people in that department, we grow in that department like crazy as well. And all those jobs are well over $20 an hour to start.
So as Dave said, as we add the automation, we're going to add the tech jobs that go with it. So things will be shifting as our production shifts as well.
I think, Councilor Lehman, I think the idea here is these aren't warehouse jobs. These are true manufacturing jobs, which are different and I think carry a little higher wage. I agree our marker should be up. We can leave that for another time. Expansion of jobs in our community, putting, with the help of Opus and Cherney, putting some land that we've held for a long time back on the tax rolls. Yes, part of this consideration is some abatement, but it comes with jobs. And if Cherney's been in their Edina facility for how long?
53 years, sir.
Right.
And I don't ever want to move again. So when we come here, I'd like to stay here for 53 years.
Lloyd Cherney would be very happy to be coming to Shakopee. And that's where I look at it. It's 9 years on a cap, but out of a company that will be around for a long, long time. You're thinking, I'm thinking way beyond the aspect of the abatement for this and what Cherney can become during that time. Councilor Lehman? I
have absolutely no qualms with the 55-year-old that wants to work part-time sweeping floors at $12 an hour. I have no qualms with that. I'm saying, and there is a place in your company for that type of worker.
Certainly, sir.
Or the person that wants to do the manual labor and start at the entry level. That's fine. The point I'm making is that what's required is a certain threshold, and I want to make sure that we meet that threshold because it's required in our business subsidy policy, which this body, in my opinion, does need to revisit, not because of anything you've done. You're actually meeting our business policy. So I wanted to make sure that there's the variety in there because I think it serves a better demographic, to be honest with you. You've
Yes,
got
sir.
you've got your high-end engineer type out of college doing these functions, getting paid well for it, paying back their school loan. And you've got the entry level that are starting out, moving up, learning within the company, and getting a step into the game. So I think that diversity is good. I just want to make sure that what we're putting into this is beneficial to the community.
All right. I agree. Other questions of the applicant? Other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This is a public hearing. Anybody else like to come forward and make comment on this application? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and welcome. This is a public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
I have a motion and a second by Counselor Lehman to close the public hearing. Further discussion? 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 All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. Do you have more to add?
No, Mayor and Council, I think, we heard a while ago that we needed to change the dynamic on the jobs we were bringing here. I think KAB was kind of our first example. This is another good example, I think, of a company that, as Councilmember Lehman mentioned, they have jobs here and they have jobs way over here, and it's not just one job over here, it's a whole tranche of jobs over here. And as this company grows, and that's one of the reasons why they're locating here, and automates, those lower jobs move up into the higher jobs because now they become computer operators. And the fact that they know they're going to be shrinking the lower jobs, but they're still going to be adding 50 jobs over the next 5 years tells you the growth potential with this company. And working with Opus for the past year, a lot of companies have come our way and we've said, yeah, not today. So when a company came along that was an international company, you saw the depth that this company distributes to. It's basically the world. And it's a corporate headquarters. It's got R&D. It had the engineering jobs. It had the latest state-of-the-art equipment. They don't move, as you heard, very often. We said, this is a good fit for Shakopee and for this site. I mean, particularly since this site currently has not been paying taxes in forever. They're still going to be paying the school taxes and the county taxes, et cetera. And the fact that we're getting a second spec building that'll be paying the full rate, staff just thought this was a great partnership opportunity.
Other questions of? I do just make a comment. I met Lloyd Cherney back in the 1980s. I believe when they make their plug, they're one of the only manufacturers in the United States that make the plugs that they talk about that is used in industrial applications, municipal applications, and when I look at jobs here in our community, sure, we look at warehouses on the other end, but here's a manufacturer that does something that not everybody else does, right? So a worker in this facility could, have some skill training, come with skills. Yes, push the broom, but it's more than that. I kind of look at it when we had KEB, unique business that you don't hear much about. That's producing a product that is one of the behind-the-scenes products that you don't really think of, but it's vitally important to industry. So I want our marker to be higher, but they do meet our marker. They're building a corporate headquarters here, which research and development. We're getting a piece on the back on the tax rolls. Even though we're abating it, an expansion of jobs in our community. Councilor?
What I like about Cherney here is that, they have the backing of that corporate giant of Odie, and they are products that you see every day on the shelves and are out there. So it is a solid company, and I do like the idea that it is one of those from tech to someone. A skilled laborer could work on the floor. So, and I think that's a great fit for Shakopee. I would have liked to see this property go back on the tax rolls fully, and but I understand where we're at, and I also would like to see the city kind of moving away from that real estate business. You guys have done a great job, but I'm not sure that's where the city should be pushing properties like that. But so I understand. I also like the idea that over time, 50 more jobs will be created in Shakopee, along with the ones that are coming from Edina.
Counselor Lehman?
I would just say that's a minimum requirement. There's nothing that would stop them from going farther than that.
Oh, sure. Yes, yes.
If they're
And with Odie's backing,
successful-
they could.
If they're successful more than they plan, they could be adding more jobs than what's required. So don't take that off the table. But at least we know what the minimum requirements are.
You want to make a motion? Counselor Contreras?
With all this great conversation, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number R 2020-018, granting a property tax abatement for Churn/Opus for a new headquarters location on Verling Drive in the West End, consisting of 130,000 square feet building with 119 jobs and an additional 50 jobs over the next 5 years.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Discussion? I know some of us have spoke already.
I have one question.
Yeah, Counselor.
Mayor, it's probably more for staff, but the outlot, is that going to be a separate item handled separately by this body?
Michael?
The outlot entrance.
So,
Old
so
truck
Mayor, and
stop.
Mayor and Council, Terracon just did the drilling last week and got results back on Friday. It'll really be up to them working with Minnesota Pollution Control and what we do with that site. I wasn't here when the site was acquired, but in the paperwork, it said it was clean. When they drilled, they hit oil at 14, 15 feet, which doesn't tell me the site was clean. So I think there's some negotiation. That site was closed by the Pollution Control Agency, and what does that really mean is what our consultant said. So I think our goal is to find out how we get that site cleaned and come up with some ideas for remediation and work with Opus, because I think they want a nice entrance to their property. They're making a pretty big investment here.
But that'll be dealt separately.
Mayor and Council, correct. You'll see whatever we come up with, we'll bring back to you.
Right. The whole idea, we can put a cap on it and put
Right.
our monument on it, and
Right.
welcome to Shakopee, right?
Yeah, I just
We
wanted
just
to know
don't-
that outlet
Side
was something
torches
that we
don't
were
fit
gonna
in?
deal with.
Oh.
Turn it up, and we're looking for the people that approve that truck stop. That's been
Yeah.
motion on the table, further discussion, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you.
Welcome
Welcome
to
to
Shakopee.
Shakopee.
Welcome to Shakopee.
Welcome.
All right. Moving ahead then, we would stand in recess for the EDA meeting. Make a motion. Counselor Lehman?
Motion to adjourn to the EDA meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to recess to the EDA. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. President.
Let's call the February 18th, 2020 meeting of the Shakopee Economic Development Authority to order. Please make note of the roll. Item number 2 is approval of the agenda. Mr. Lehman,
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
we have a motion and a second by Contreras. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, I'll offer to move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the EDA minutes, which are on consent. Any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4, general business. Item 4A, Riverfront Bluff presentation. Mr. Kursky?
Mr. President, board members, so when you all approved the amendment, the second amendment to this development agreement, we said we'd be back to you with the concept plans that included the entire block and a reconfiguration of the block. So we're here tonight to show you those. Dan Hebert from the Gone Companies is also here. Just to refresh a little bit, this is the site we're talking about. All of it's currently vacant now and all controlled by the EDA. So this is their concept plan. So basically, this is a podium design. So you'll notice here, there's townhouses that are along the riverfront. They are basically blocking the parking garage at the lowest level. And then over here is the entrance and storage for the proposed restaurant. And you can see here, there's a lot of grade to this site. As you come up on Atwood Street, as you're in the lower end, there is a drop-off area and entrance for residents to go into a lobby. As you go up, this is the full site plan. So now you can see the lobby's actually underneath here. It comes up, here's your elevators on the second floor with a corridor. They did now include some retail space. They've been negotiating with a potential tenant for this location. There's townhouses that block this surface parking lot along First Avenue. And so basically it's open just on this end facing the businesses. As you go up, you can again see there's two level of townhouses on First Avenue. And then this is the basic footprint of the building. And you can see this is the roofs of the townhouses that are on Levy Drive. And then the upper floors, as you go up, there's a mixture here, 170 units, a mixture of alcoves, studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. And then a kind of new feature they worked on from some feedback, they included a common area up on the top floor that allows the residents the view out over the river. So here's the elevations. You'll be able to understand these a little bit better when we get to the perspectives, but here's the restaurant. So they have a potential tenant that we've met with for this location. Their storage is actually underneath here. The parking garage is actually behind this area. So these 2-story townhouses actually cover up the parking garage. And then here's on First Avenue, the taller buildings in the rear. Here's the retail location, or right here. And then over here, this is the townhouses. This is on Atwood Street. There's a feature they're kind of looking at that's actually the Minnesota River at the main entrance to the building. A lot of variety of different materials. And then over here again, you can see there's a really pretty significant drop here on the site. So to get some perspective, so this is what you would see along First Avenue as you drive by. So these are the townhouses. And then this is the main corner. So this is the retail/commercial space that would be here, units above, and this is Atwood Street over here. So this is kind of a entryway, gateway plaza for the project. And then here's the restaurant with a pretty large outdoor patio area with a covered awning. Looks out onto the river, and then here's that space for the actual residents they can use to look out on the river. They've got lots of balconies throughout the project to really take advantage of the views. Mr. Hebert is here to answer any questions. So the next step in this is, after tonight, they will go back and be working on the engineering. As you know, the site has a lot of contamination. They're in the process right now of pricing out their construction and the site, removing the garbage on the site. And there's also a lot of utility work. So to go back, if I can get here quickly. So you'll be seeing a lot recombination right now. This is a lot of smaller parcels in the alley that we've abandoned. This actually is in the property, so we'll be dedicating new right-of-way here to create this new street. They've been working with engineering and their consultants. Actually, the stormwater for this facility will be in a chamber that will be in the street that will also pick up some of the street stormwater and then meter that out into the river. New parking spaces along the street, new sidewalks, landscaping, et cetera. So there's still a lot of engineering and design work to be done, but they're wanted to bring this concept back to you before they went and took the next big step to get in the engineering side.
You're the president.
Oh, yes, right, I'm sorry. Thank you. A question on the townhomes. It's more of a curiosity. It shows these 1-bedroom townhomes on the outside of the building. Are those actually 2-story 1-bedrooms, or are there a 1-bedroom and?
They're actually, Mr. President and members, they're they're stacked one-bedrooms. So you can see on this plan, these are the stairways that go into those units, so you actually go up a
So we're
flight.
calling them a townhouse only because of the shape on the outside
Yes,
of the
they're
building?
two-story.
Okay.
And they don't have an elevator, unlike the rest of the project, they're all walk-ups. And the same is true on the ones on Levy Drive. They're actually stepping back kind of the main building and hiding this parking garage using that. I think that was a pretty creative solution to give the building some pretty significant change in shape.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Lehman?
Mr. President, first question, I actually have a couple. The first one is the garage access. Would it be the east elevation, I guess? Do you have the east elevation?
Let's see here, there we go.
That's looking east.
So there's two points of garage access, and Mr. Heber can correct me. There's one here, and then in the second kind of garage, there's one up here off the surface parking lot. So it's a stacked garage, they're not connected.
They're not connected, even though it shows they are connected?
Well, they're connected in that they're one garage, but there's two levels.
Right. Good evening.
Good evening. So this
Can you
is
state your name and address for the record?
Dan Hebert, Gun Companies, Forest Lake, Minnesota. I've got with me here the architect, Brian Gadient. So I think we step back a little bit and we talk about the slope from First Avenue down to the river. There's pretty significant. So it's structured parking, probably more than underground parking. So what you're seeing here is
This section here would be underground.
yeah, well, it's not really underground per se. It goes underground about this section here and about this section here because of the
We're
slope.
not seeing your marker. You have to show them the.
Okay.
The other cursor.
Oh, sorry, here we go. So it is basically out of the ground here, and then it goes into the ground as it further it goes to the south. So then you have your garage entrance here for the lower garage, parking garage, and then for the other parking garage, it comes off of Scott Street here. And so, Brian, if you wanted to explain a little bit more about the circulation of this.
As far as the garage is concerned, that does pretty well sum it up. The garage entry off of Scott, the access point off of Scott will get you to the upper garage level. The lower garage level is at the same level as Levy Drive. The upper garage level is about the same level as First Street.
And Mr. President,
Oh, Mr. Lehman.
is one portion of this to have two level of a garage? Or is it all single level?
There are two levels of garage.
But are they like this, not on top of each other?
They are on top of each other, correct?
Okay, and that is only the northern portion there?
Correct. That is only this portion right here. The other portion that is above the garage is apartments and retail space. And then above the garage over here is the parking and garage access to the upper garage.
Okay. And my last question, Mr. President, what's the parking space ratio to the estimate on the tenancy?
Approximately 1.3.
1.3 parking
This
spaces?
is per unit, and that doesn't count the restaurant parking, which is about 18 stalls for 3,600 square feet.
And the restaurant parking is where?
Is on the street.
Okay.
Any other questions?
The parking for the townhomes, does it go directly into the parking ramp or the parking garage? And so people can walk out of their townhomes and go right into the garage, or do they need to go around and into the?
That's correct. It goes right into the,
Is the same
if
on
you can
the
see
south side?
right here where there's a door going from the parking garage and then the doors going into the units, if that makes sense.
Okay.
For the southern units, there won't be any direct parking garage access to those units.
Here.
Any other questions? Mr. Lehman?
Do we know what the distance is from the parking entry on Scott to the corner of First Avenue?
It's not a county road, it doesn't have to be a quarter mile.
You talking here or you talk here to here?
Correct. I brought that up last time.
Yep, you did.
It's approximately 60 feet.
60? And our site triangle is, does that meet our site triangle requirements?
I think that,
Or you can't park back here, only past the driveway, correct?
right.
North of the driveway? Okay, never mind.
All right,
Mr. Mars, you had a question?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
So this project has moved up from 120 some units to 170 now. Is that correct?
125 units to 170, correct?
Okay. And then the design has changed a little bit, and actually, if you go back to the drawings of the building. So, especially, let's say the First Avenue, looking to the north, there you go. So, this is gonna be a step, have like a step, right, with the townhomes down, will be 2 levels, with the parking lot in between, and then the bigger mass of 4 stories will be on the north side, right?
That's correct.
Or, and on the east side, I guess, as well, right?
Correct.
So it looked like it was a step. I think that helps break it up, the mass of it all, so I'm in favor of that. Your art design is unique, but wondering why that isn't on the more visible drive-by side, or either on the First Avenue side or closer to the main drag, rather than, I know your offices or your main entrance is down by the restaurant, but just for more visual appeal in our community. You have kind of you're talking about that feature there on the left side. Is that gonna be really visible from our main drag? I'm sure at 4 stories the top of it will be.
It will be visible from First moving to the west. It will be visible there. We also felt that a lot of the interaction, a lot of the traffic from not only the restaurant, but also through the park will have access to this. So that's where we felt it was kind of a combination of, if we're going to put it somewhere, let's try and make it as visible to the most traffic, but not necessarily strictly street traffic.
I'm sure this building will have a name. Most these new urban apartments have names to them, and that's why I was kind of asking that. I didn't see that on the front. I'm gonna get down to some, I had some parking questions too, but I think Councilor Lehman addressed a few of them. Out of the 179 units, I'm showing about 69 of them are either studio or alcoves. So those are smaller. Alcove is one step up from a studio, is that correct?
Correct. I think the only difference would be a partitioned area as opposed to an open studio concept.
And your market for then this apartment, it just looks like you're looking for young professionals within the surrounding area in our community. Is that where your marketplace is going to be at?
I think it's a combination of young professionals and also empty nesters as well. And so I should also say that we do have term sheets out for the restaurant and as well as the retail. Our target user for the retail is a fitness, program fitness concept.
To that point, I have a question on the fitness. Now, most apartments I see have their own fitness facility, and this one has a retail fitness studio area. Is that how you're going to manage the tenants, and that they would use that facility?
So yeah, that would be part of the amenity of the project, is have program fitness for the residents. We've seen that in other projects has gone very well. Instead of having call it a fitness room afterthought, or just where we want to be more engaging with the residents. We feel that this is more of a lifestyle living, and so it caters to that.
But it also has a retail component where someone could like become a member?
Of course, yeah. I mean, there are memberships through the fitness concept here. So there's personal training 24/7.
I guess
Yeah.
I heard you mention that it was part of like the tenant plan, part of the tenant's opportunity to use that fitness facility without paying extra. That's not what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is there would be, generally speaking, a general membership that would be part of the residence package. And then above and beyond that, what we see that tenants are drawn to is program fitness. And so that's where the retail fitness will fit in. And the fitness center will not just serve the 170 units, but also serve the community.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Kursky, you had more?
So, Mr. President, board members, so the next thing you'll see will be a third amendment to the contract for private development that will include the money that this project's receiving from the state of Minnesota deed cleanup program and then their final construction costs. I think we actually did see both this restaurant and this fitness concept in their project in Forest Lake. And it was pretty interesting to see how active the fitness room was. And so when we talked to the developer, so this will be if I get this to work. This will be a pretty glassed area, so from the road, you'll see activity in there. It will be open probably 24/7. And the interesting thing at their other project is the residents use it, but they do get a lot of people that have customized fitness training that are just the general public. So it created a pretty active space, and that has fewer units in this, so we expect this to be pretty successful. Plus, the restaurant's a pretty proven concept that has couple locations. It'll be a different product than anyone else currently offers in Shakopee. So, plus having a big outdoor patio on the river will be nice.
No, I think it's great. I like, and the art part of it kind of focused towards the park and the river. We're trying to focus back to the river. I know you wanted to focus it towards First Avenue.
I think rather than, that's, Mr. President, I guess, looking at the new renderings, I like the step back approach a little bit rather than the big block aspect of it. I think that'll help. And you're right, the majority of it is facing the river. If you want to, be on that second, third floor or up at the top where we all thought a restaurant would go at one time. But, I think that concept for this new revised plan is pretty cool. I do have a follow-up question for staff. Just in general, we've been working on this project for, seems like
Forever?
forever, and it has evolved from a L to a whole city block, and I understand that. But if we were to move along here as we go, when do you think something like this would break ground?
Mr. President, board members, their goal right now is to complete the engineering work during these winter months and start demolition in the spring and site excavation this spring, and be vertical probably sometime late summer, early fall.
Okay.
I just want to say the architect and the developer did a really great job. If you look at this plan, to be able to integrate all these vertical spaces, so to keep the restaurant having its own elevator and own entrance so it doesn't interfere with the residents, but the residents just have to literally go outside and walk around the corner, then go into the restaurant, because they've found on their other projects, a lot of residents tend to hang out at the restaurants because it's convenient. The other thing is that they've been able to provide from them, as Councilmember Brennan pointed out, you can go into these townhouses directly from the garage, which I think is kind of a unique on both levels. And also there's a pretty nice entrance from this parking lot into kind of this common area and then back into the halls. So I think they've done a really good job of working with us on trying to make this a pretty unique project. I don't think we've seen anything like this anywhere in the region. So this has really been designed specifically for this site.
No, I'm excited for the project to move forward, and every little component we change down there is great for the building. Oh,
I just have a quick question. Will Levy Drive still have access to the trail?
Mr. President, board members, yes. I mean, I think one of the things we still haven't worked out is there's some items over on this side. Some of the utilities want to be on the back of the curb that are currently in the street, particularly, I believe, the gas company. So there'll be some disruption to some of the landscaping on that side, and we'll have to work on how that gets restored.
The rotary little kiosk there might.
Yes, the rotary kiosk for one.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Just a
Yes.
quick comment to the architect. I really do appreciate, as I was, reviewing it, the levy drive perspective, I really, really did enjoy seeing that is a step forward to our vision that we do have for the riverfront. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Item 5. Mr. Mars?
Mr. President, I'll offer a motion to adjourn to Wednesday, March 4th, 2020 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Motion and second by Contreras to adjourn till March 4th. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.
We will reconvene the City of Shakopee City Council meeting for February 18th, 2020. We just came out of our EDA meeting. We're moving along here. 10A1, monthly financial report was in our consent agenda. We are on 10B1, plan unit development concept review for Shakopee Gravel. Michael, welcome back.
Evening again, Mayor and Council. So this is part of the new program we have. You saw this with the Summerlin Summergate project, where you get to see these projects when they're just kind of at initial idea stage. So this is the proposed plan unit development concept review for the Shakopee gravel site. This is the, excuse me, the project site. As many of you know, this has been ongoing for many years, providing gravel to the region. The 2040 land use guiding currently is mixed use center for this portion, which includes retail, dining, services, and office, and then suburban residential attached and detached for the rest of the yellow portion of the property. Over the years, the Board of Adjustments and the City Council had made a condition that the owner and the owner's representatives would come back on a regular basis to kind of update the gravel pit. So this was the 2015 concept plan. This was the 2017-2018 concept plan. This will give you an idea. Back in 2017, this is kind of what the gravel pit looked like. The green areas are pretty close to what the grade will be. The red areas are high. I believe the purple areas are the lowest areas. So you can see this site's going to require a significant amount of grading and earthwork. The consultants and owners are here tonight. I think one of the things they want to hear tonight are they kind of headed in not necessarily the perfect direction, but at least the right direction, so that they'll have to make a significant investment to do additional geotechnical work on this site, to plan how you kind of turn these materials over and fill the site. So before they start that process, they wanted to have partners on board and a concept plan. So this is their concept plan. If I can get this thing to work. Over in the corner of 17th and Mystic Lake Drive is, there we go, is a business park use with an office building on the corner, townhomes to kind of match the townhome pattern that exists today. And then the rest of the site is a combination of single-family lots, 65 by 125 lots, and then 55 by 125 lots. So kind of smaller lots in this area and a little bit larger lots in this area. So Stantec Consulting will be here talking about this tonight. So the northeast corner of the current 40 acres is proposed as commercial kind of industrial mixed use, so one commercial medical building and 2 office flex buildings. Their proposal shows the northwest at 20 to 25 acres as townhomes, approximately 116 units, excuse me, accessible from a private drive. The balance of the property, 65 to 70 acres, is proposed as single-family residential lots, 119 lots with that 65-foot frontage, and 103 lots with the 55-foot frontages. Those are basically villa homes where you own your house, but the association takes care of all the exterior snow plowing, shoveling, lawn mowing, et cetera. So 10% of the property is shown as ponds and water features. Again, there'd be extensive reclamation that's ongoing now, but substantial grading work would still be necessary for this project. And so again, the applicant's seeking some direction, actually from the city council. These are the proposals from M&I Homes, who's their selected home builder. So they have some kind of traditional models. These all meet our current single-family design guidelines. And then these are the villa homes. One of the questions that came up during the planning commission is how would they ensure you don't end up with the same house? They would set up guidelines so they would not have the same house next to each other. So there would be variety, and they have, M&I is a pretty large builder. You'll hear from them tonight. They have many floor plans and many designs, but these are just showing us some of the variety they have. This is a 2-story villa. And then this is a townhome. It's a little different model for us. This actually has a front face street frontage with parking behind, so you would not see the garage doors that you often see associated with townhomes. They actually would have kind of a pretty nice street frontage. And then Opus is their proposed business park developer. These are just some concept of model buildings that they were looking at. These would all, of course, have to meet our new design guidelines. These are some that they've just built. So as presently proposed, the project is not consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan, which is guided mixed-use center. For the project to align with the city's guiding plan, they basically would have to re-guide the northernmost portion of the project. Project also required rezoning consistent with the existing and amended guiding plan to a PUD district. If similar to Summerlin, Summergate, they'd have to do an EAW before they come back to you. And the developer shall provide at least 15% of the project areas open space and landscaped areas. That's one of the requirements of the PUD. So we just went through this with the Planning Commission, but here's some of the items that we talked about. So moving the building on the northeast corner, consider using somewhat of a different design. We currently would not allow this under the new design standards that we currently have. Access to County Highway 83 would not be permitted by the county here. This is a main highway with access control. And one of the things we looked at is rotating these buildings so you actually would have a front facing the main road. Remove these access points and look at this access point. One of the discussions was how do we make sure that tractor trailers kind of going into this truck court don't get mixed up in the neighborhood. So this area will take some additional design work. Let's see here. Let's see what else we have. These new streets really need to be connected. This was designed originally to connect, so this street needs to continue into the townhomes and not have this cul-de-sac right here. So you can see this was actually designed to continue. These lots down here need to get reconfigured. There actually is a trail over here. One of the big discussion points was there's probably not going to be a specific park for this neighborhood, but there's a lot of parkland over to the west, but given the current design, there's no way to get to it. The city actually owns right-of-way and trail access points here to get people over to that park area. So this would need to be reconfigured and connected so that residents will be able to walk to that park. And again, as part of the Summerland, Summergate development, they're going to be doing a park on their side in that existing neighborhood. So there'll be significant parks within the area, but people need to be able to get there. The other thing is that they need to incorporate a trail network throughout this subdivision around these ponding areas. One of the things we found through the park master planning process is people want to be able to walk around the neighborhoods, not just down the sidewalks, but want public access to trails. So one of the things they really need to look at, if you look at some of those earlier designs that you saw, they had a pretty extensive trail network that really needs to be incorporated back in, and that would help them get to their 15% open space requirement. And then down here, there's just some odd remnants, like this little piece that's left over that needs to get incorporated back into the development. And the consultants here, and they'll be happy to walk through their presentation, and then staff would be happy to take
Questions of staff? Councilor Lehman.
Can you put that picture back up that you just had a minute ago?
Yes, sir. If I can get all this to work.
The cul-de-sac to the bottom left, how do we, is there any way?
West side.
Yeah, that one. Is there any way to connect that to somewhere?
Probably mayor and council member no, but what needs to happen is, you can see the trail just dead ends right here. That trail needs to come into this. So these lots will have to get reconfigured. And again, engineering hasn't done kind of the fine tooth comb design issues. This typically is not a situation we would allow, as kind of this odd cul-de-sac on the end.
Right.
So I think as part of the trail, that corner is going to have to get redesigned, and hopefully this will go away or get reconfigured.
And I totally agree with the connection on the top left, that cul-de-sac.
Yeah, this was actually set up to go through, so.
Yep, and then the two connections on Thrust at the bottom. And I'm also thinking of,
Here we go.
you've got one connection going to a future development to the east,
Yep,
up and to the right.
yep, right here.
Yep, I'm thinking, do we need to have another one further to the north, on the northern side of that parcel?
Well, the planning commission did have a discussion, what's the future of these parcels? And the applicant said they would take a look at how best those might lay out and where those other roads might come in. I think one of the clear issues is we're not going to allow kind of this undulating street. This needs to be a straight through street with this connection right here, with
Right.
right angles.
Right, but I'm thinking if there's no access off of 83, that parcel, that white parcel is gonna need more than one road leading to it, unless it comes off a Thrush.
Yeah, mayor and council, I think one of the things we're looking at is there another need for another access point maybe here to serve the future development of this parcel? Because I
Right.
believe there's a proposal somewhere down here for another access point on County Highway 83.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? This is concept review, so Counselor Lehman?
Would Thrush be extended to the east to 83?
Hang on one second, council member. I can.
Way at the bottom.
So I believe this is the eventual connection, mayor and council, through here. So Thrush would continue someday through here, and there's an alignment of
You're
another
not seeing
intersection.
your
Right to the order.
cursor.
Oops, sorry. So Thrush is right here. It would continue through, and there already is an intersection built out right here that this would line up.
Right.
So this is a existing intersection, and we'd want to line that one up.
The drag strip would be no more.
Other questions of staff?
I do. I do have questions about the same two streets coming into Thrush. And because I think the Thrush is going to take a lot of traffic, and to get to out of that area is to go to Independence, and to Independence to 17th Avenue, which 17th Avenue is, and Independence is not that easy to get in and out of. So I hope we consider getting a traffic signal there. Just my 2 cents on that.
So mayor and council, as part of the EAW, they'll look at that. I think at the Summerlin, Summergate, EAW identified Independence as a long-term degrading intersection because of all these projects, and that'll be something that the engineering staff will take a look at.
I know that there's also a park down, Green Meadows Park is down on the southwest corner, so trails could link up to Green Meadows. Okay.
Mayor and council, this is one of the few areas where there's actually a lot of parks kind of over here and down here, but the current design doesn't really connect, and I think the applicant, through the planning commission, realized that, and again, this is just their kind of first concept and wanted that kind of feedback, so when they come back for the EAW and further design work, they can include some of these things.
Counselor Lehman?
Mayor, I think we're gonna have to have some kind of dedicated truck route off of 17th Avenue into the northeast, if that's what's being proposed.
Probably.
And again, Mayor and Council, the EAW will address how this 17th Avenue, this has already been built out by the county, how this road actually works and how these buildings actually get oriented and make it work.
Other questions of staff? If not, I'm sorry.
Just a comment. I do notice the water features line up with some of the mining, which is probably a good way to.
On purpose, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
sure. And I love the idea of having all these water features in there. And I know I can't orient it to the Prior Lake Channel, but isn't there a feature that goes near here or no? Okay. Okay, my mistake, but thank you.
Other questions of staff? If not, I don't know if this is a formal application, but John, if you'd like to come forward?
Mayor and council members, John Shardlow with Stantec. Thank you for the opportunity to address you informally on this concept plan. It really is more intended as sort of a yield plan for us to get a sense of how much product could be placed on the site. As Mr. Kursky noted, we're going to be turning the page on a very significant new chapter in the life of Shakopee Gravel. If you can take a look at what's on the screen there and look at the image on the upper right hand, it gives you a sense of the kind of topography we're dealing with out there right now. So when we look at making connections with the local street system, we're certainly aware of that. We're going to be doing everything we can. But there's some places where we have 60-foot differences in elevation. So a big part of what we're going to be doing next, assuming that we get some positive nods from you in terms of where we're going, is we'll do a comprehensive set of borings on the site. We'll do test pits, we'll do environmental evaluation, and we'll work with civil engineers and Braun Engineering to come up with a mass grading concept and a plan for the utility. So we know for sure that this concept plan is going to change. I want to just briefly introduce the folks who are here with us tonight. Representing the owners of Shakopee Gravel are Bonnie and Bert Noterman, and also Dale Bush. Dale is one of the Bush family members who were heirs of Londo Bush, who was the original owner. I'm here. Also, one of the most important things we want to do tonight is introduce you to M&I Homes. You already know Opus, but I do want to have the opportunity for you to get to know M&I Homes and ask them questions about the product that they would anticipate on the site. And for both Opus and M&I Homes to talk about their vision for the future of the site. But before we do that, I want to just ask Bert Noterman to come up here, and I've been working for them on this site since, I think, 1996. So every year since 1996, I've come to the city and gone over the conditional use permit annual review. And I can tell you that throughout that time, Bert and Londo and subsequently the Bushes have always said that they want to do this right, so that when it's mined out, the land is still available to be a valuable development. So Bert would just like to make a couple opening comments.
Welcome.
Welcome, Honorable Mayor, council members, and city staff. Bert Noterman and my wife Bonnie. We're half owners of Shakopee Gravel, and Dale Bush representing the Bush family. Well, anyway, I think it's been about 50 years that my dad and myself and Lando and Ed Hedden bought it, and now basically it's my family and Lando's family. And it's been a long haul, you know, a lot of issues over the years and smooth a lot of things out. And all along, Lando and I have had the commitment to put our names on this project and make sure that we're not only proud of it, but that the city would be proud of it. So we did our due diligence and had a lot of people looking at the property wanting to buy it many years ago and up to this day. And we decided, doing our due diligence, that we wanted to have somebody reputable putting the project together. And so we picked Opus and M&I. And we did our due diligence on both of them. And I think that we'll be proud, and the city will be proud to have them put this project together for us. And I know that, you know, that I'm committed to Shakopee. Most of you know me. I've been around for a few years, and my commitment is to the community. So I want to put my name on this project and make sure that it's in the best interest of not just the community, but all around. So I hope that we get the project done. We have some commitments from you, and that we can move on to this project eventually, and then obviously the benefit is to make sure that we have some benefits in far as tax revenues for the city and the school district, the county and the state. So that's our goal, and I want to make a dollar too, of course. But thank you, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me at this time.
Counselor?
Bert and Bonnie, you are pillars of our community, and your commitment to this community has shown over the years, and I trust the fact that what you say is what you're going to do.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Counselor Lehman?
Matt? I have a question.
Sure.
If memory serves me right, when you started this whole thing, that land was fairly flat.
It was farmland, yes. It was, bought it from my uncle's wife. Jerrison bought it about 50 years ago. It was flat, right?
So
Yes.
now we've got some high spots and some low spots, 60, 70 feet.
Yep.
Did I hear this right, that we're trying to decide what to do about that? Is that what we're?
Well, not really. The truth would be known that we have enough fill. You know, I spend some money every year to see how much fill we need to make it for an end project. So we have had enough fill in the project to complete the project for many years. It's based on how much sand we take out, sand and gravel, and how much we bring in. So we're pretty well okay, and we've got a couple other projects this summer that will have enough to bring it up to where it should be.
Okay.
I'm not an engineer, this guy is, but.
All right.
So,
Well, Bert, this is an exciting new chapter in the book because I was on the Planning Commission in the 90s and spent a lot of time in reviews with John and our citizen, our resident citizen, that watchdog is not here tonight, but you know, personally, to see this get mined out over the last 20 years and then turn back into the development for the community, it's benefited us all along. So I think this is a proud moment as we walk down this conceptual plan and get ready for development over the next several years.
well, thank you, Bill. I'll be anxious to work with the city and make sure we got the best project for both of us. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Mayor, again, Mr. Kurski did a good job with the introduction, so I'm not going to duplicate what he's already said. This is a very preliminary, very conceptual program for the number of units and the type of units that we can get on the property. As Mr. Kurski can attest, I've tried to work really closely with the staff throughout the time that we've been working on this, and when the city was working on the comprehensive plan, we had a pretty serious proposal from a baseball academy developer who wanted to do a Twin Cities orthopedic clinic out there, and so the configuration of land uses that shows up in the comprehensive plan was our best guess at the time of where we were going with the project. That opportunity has gone away, so that's why we're in a situation where we do need to make an amendment to the comprehensive plan. So for the last several years, and when I was in front of the Planning Commission, we showed the reclamation plans, the iterations that we did every year for the last several years. And in the last many years, we've been taking in twice as many yards of material as been taken out. So we have been moving toward that point of importing more dirt than exporting. But the fact of the matter is there's been mining on the site and there's been reclamation for many, many, many years. We're going to have to move all of that dirt. We're going to have to reconfigure it. We're going to have to compact it. Every one of the foundations for every one of those residential units is going to have to be tested and certified. So we've got a very extensive grading operation ahead of us. So we appreciated the comments from the Planning Commission. We anticipated a lot of them. We know when we get into the details of what's on the site, when we look at the detail borings, that we're going to have to do some pretty creative grading. There probably will be some open space and some park that is economically beneficial to avoid having to turn into lots, if you will. It may be cost prohibitive to do that. And so we will be looking at trails. We will be looking at recreational connections. And we'll certainly be looking at a street system that works. So Again, you know Opus. We'll have Phil Catnaugh come up in a bit and talk a little bit about their vision for the site, but I did want to give you a chance to meet John Rask, who's Vice President with M&I Homes. They're one of the largest home builders in the state, in the Twin Cities metropolitan area. And frankly, in order to take on a project of this magnitude, we need partners with capacity. We need partners that we can trust. I did the redevelopment of the Maple Grove gravel mines, the 2,000 acres there, and worked closely with Opus through that process. There's a certain skill set that comes along with redeveloping gravel quarries, and Opus has it. I've also worked with John Rask and his company for many, many years, and they're trusted partners. So with that, I'd like to just call on John Rask, who will then bring up Phil Catnaugh, and I'll come back for just a couple closing remarks.
Good evening and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. John Rask with MI Homes. I'll be brief because you had a real introduction there a minute ago, but MI is relatively new in the market, but we're not really new as a company. MI purchased Hans Hagen Homes about 4 years ago. Hans Hagen Homes has been in this market for over 50 years. I was the president at the time we sold to MI. Hans decided at the age of 82, I think it was, that maybe he should retire and kind of set up the next chapter. So we found a partner in MI at the time that was very similar, aligned with us and our vision and values as a company, and headquartered out of Columbus, Ohio, but we operate here locally. You have a local division, many of the same folks that were Hans Hagen are now with our company. So we build all around the Twin Cities metro. Our nearest project is, at this point, is in Prior Lake, right on your border, right off Crest, and which is 18, just north of Highway 42. Project called Haven Ridge, where we have our villa homes in a single-family lineup. We see this as a really unique opportunity. It's a challenging site, as you can imagine. We've done reclamations before in gravel pit properties, so we understand the challenges, but also the unique opportunities that it presents, because it's truly a blank slate, because we're not, the topography that's there today can really become anything. So it gives us the ability to kind of shape the landscape in a way that can create a really attractive neighborhood. Given the size of the property, and we feel there's a market demand for multiple products, everything from townhomes to single family to a villa home. We known largely in this metro, we build probably half of what we build about 600 homes a year. About half of those are in a villa home market. So it's the aging population. It's really providing it's main floor master living for people, that looking for that kind of lifestyle. And then, as mentioned earlier, the association maintenance. So people who want to travel, maybe have a cabin up north and need somebody to cut the grass while they're away. We offer those kind of services. So again, Shakopee is a very diverse housing market. You're growing your job base, which is interesting to see, which creates obviously demand for housing and workers that come along with it. So from a product standpoint, we just talked about, we'll kind of try to touch on everything that we see here and needed in the marketplace. Would be the exclusive builder in this portion of the neighborhood. Certainly would work with Opus and Stantec to design this comprehensive plan and master plan the community as a whole to make sure that the land uses that we establish have the appropriate transitions, that we're being thoughtful with the views on and off the sites for both the commercial as well as the residential. And we have a lot of experience as a company over the years doing these kind of neighborhoods, and feel honored to have an opportunity to work with this group here, because you've got some of the best people in the industry in Opus and Stantec and the Notermans, and the Bushes have really set this up to be something, they've given a lot of thought to the next chapter of this property, and we take it as a great responsibility on our part to kind of help shape that. So excited to be here. If there's any questions I can answer about us or our company, or what we have planned. As John mentioned, this is lines on a piece of paper at this point, because it's immense amount of work that is needed just to kind of advance to the next stage of, what does the neighborhood land plan start to look like. So don't get too hung up on that, but if there's any feedback or questions, I'd be happy to try to address them now.
Thank you. Questions of you? M and I would also, Mr. Ashley, you guys would develop the townhomes as well?
That's correct. The townhomes that we showed you here, the elevations are similar to ones we're building right now in the city of Minnetrista, Victoria. We did a redevelopment deal in North St. Paul, going into Cottage Grove with a similar product. We have different townhome lineups, so I wouldn't say that that would be the exact fit, but we saw, at least initially, that seemed like something that would work well on this site.
And then so the front porch with the parking in the back, style like that. I mean, we do have some stock like that in our community.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Counselor Brennan?
Foresee this as being done in stages? In what stage would be first, do you think?
Yeah, good question. And that came up at the Planning Commission as well. And so a site this size, it would take 5 or 6 years to work through. This isn't something that's going to happen quickly. But certainly we would look to, let's go back to the site plan here, but look to phase basically from the north to the south, just because that's where the infrastructure and the access comes from. Reclamation would be, kind of ongoing over, it would probably be a 2-year period to fully reclaim the site. The intent or the goal would be to try to introduce at least a portion of the neighborhood early on, so we're not delaying the entire project for that long, but try to get in there, do some reclamation on the north end and start building from north to south. And then what we also like to do is when we have 3 distinct products and trying to hit 3 segments of the housing market, we'd like to introduce all 3 of those at the same time, if we will. So there may be a portion of the townhome project and neighborhood, a portion of the villa neighborhood, and then the single family, trying to introduce that. It's not always possible to get them to show up at the same time, but that would certainly be our intent.
Follow up?
Do you have a dollar amount for each of the phases or each of the different products?
So townhomes would probably start, again, a lot of work that has to happen, but in about the 290s. We deliver usually about 320 if you look at our other neighborhoods that I would say are comparable in terms of location, the Victorias, the Minetristas of the world. So we have 3 different townhome sizes. So start at about 280, go up to about 310, but that's without options. So you get up in the probably 320 range on average on the townhomes. The villas would be fairly comparable to what we're doing in Prior Lake right now, and we average about 425. Again, we'd start about 380, but there's everything, you can put a lot of different options. We work with buyers that come into our design studio, and that buyer tends to like and want what they want, so they spend a lot of money in interior finishes, even though the homes are about 1,700 to 2,400 square feet. They're not large homes, but buyers tend to put high quality finishes in them. They're downsizing, empty nesters. They like the quality finishes. And then on the single family, we would average about that same price point in the low 4s to mid 4s. Homes ranging from about 2,200 square feet up to about 3,000 square feet. And again, at that similar price point.
Thank you.
Counselor Lehman?
For me, I think the road issue is going to dictate a lot of changes that are going to happen on this site.
Mm-hmm.
We already know that you're not going to have access to 83. We know that some of these roads are going to have to make connections. We know that there's some trails that are going to have to be contemplated throughout the site. So I think, is that the place to start? And to figure out how that changes anything that we're looking at right now. I mean, if you're asking me to say I like exactly what's in front of me, what's right in front of me just isn't going to work because of them things I've just mentioned. So I think from my perspective, I'm looking at how do we lay out the streets to function, and what does that do to what we're looking at?
Now let's, do you have any questions for the builder for specific? Otherwise,
No.
we can get John back up here if we're gonna. Other questions of the builder?
No.
Mr. Ash, thank you very much. John?
Yeah, I just
Kinda,
wanted,
I guess I appreciate, the builder and coming here on this concept plan and, but we probably need to take a step back and look a little more at the 20,000 foot level here at the plan. I mean, I think that's why you're here, right?
Right, and we do have access on 83, and we do have access on 17, and both of those accesses were set and dedicated, and the Nodermans actually dedicated the right-of-way for the additional right-of-way for both of those roads and paid for the cost of having those curb cuts put in back in the day. So those two main access points are set. Again, I know that you obviously know Phil Catnaugh, but let me just have Phil chat with you briefly about what they're thinking about for the site, and we'll come up with just some closing comments.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, I just wanted to, so the county's already approved the access on 83?
Their existing access, where the existing curb cut is, where the current access in and out of the gravel pit is established. That curb cut is set, as is the one on 17th.
All right.
Good, Jack.
I would check with the county to make sure that that's going to be continued.
Hi, good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Again, Phil Catnaugh with Opus. Pleasure to be seeing you again this evening. I'll maybe start quickly to just say, on behalf of Opus, we were thrilled with the opportunity to meet with the Noderman family, as well as to be working on another potential opportunity here in Shakopee. Maybe from the origin as Opus, we continue to look at what's the real estate really want? We're not specifically an industrial builder. We do industrial, office, retail, multifamily. So we run the entire gamut of different types of product that we can deliver that we think is conducive and responsive to the market conditions. And obviously, we've seen here in Shakopee, not only with kind of the early agenda item that we discussed today, but as well as just having a long-standing opportunity to be a developer here in your community. And, some of the things that we really found exciting was a lot of what Mr. Rask just alluded to. This is a blank slate, and it's a new chapter in the city of Shakopee and Shakopee Gravel's history. And it won't be the first time, as John mentioned, Opus is developing a gravel mine. We're actively actually back up in Maple Grove right now, developing, instead of a gravel mine, because they didn't have that available for us to develop, we went to the old dump site. So we did about a $6 million cleanup for an old transfer site to bring that into production. And we now have an industrial building up that's going back onto the tax rolls and is generating jobs. And we're very excited to continue with that kind of theme and conversation as we look at this next chapter here at Shakopee Gravel. And some of the things that are the most exciting as we look at the physical real estate itself here within Shakopee is the confidence in the market continues to be supported. I mean, you're not seeing all this housing development and all these corporate relocations as well as growth of organic companies here in Shakopee without a strong fundamental of drivers. And the need for more additional functional space that, for instance, we are looking to develop at the Brickyard Exchange. I think one thing that's unique about that is you've got the combination where you've got a user-driven solution with the Cherney, but then you also have a speculative building that Opus is going to be advancing, and you kind of can get to play with both options. One, you've got a group that's got a customized need that we're developing. The other one that we have where we're going to be creating space for that dynamic pace in the market where you have to have users that don't always have the luxury of time in either their growth plan or their market share demands. I'll use the reference that I just mentioned earlier up in a different municipality where a group very similar to Cherney is actually going into a building that we're putting up right now for their needs. And that's a combination of their growth plan as well as they just unfortunately don't have the ability to wait as long as it would take to build a customized solution for them, because similar to other organizations, they can't just stop one day their existing operations, pick up and move, and be up and operational another day. You have validation, you have testing, you have ongoing commitments and obligations that you have to have in the community. So one of the things that we looked at is, the privilege to be a part of this next chapter at Shakopee Gravel and, building something that we think is going to be very responsive to what the market needs here in the city of Shakopee. And admittedly, we understand these are just lines on the paper. This is still very conceptual, but the thought of this use being a part of this overall development was one of the things that we wanted to have early on in the conversation under the typical concept review with council to make sure that this was going to be something that you could see as a part of this overall redevelopment of the gravel mine. Most notably, while they do look like just rectangular boxes. We don't have the benefit yet of articulation or architecture. What we do want to try to highlight is that if there's one thing that we're seeing the demand in this community continues to be is that kind of smaller bay, that 20 to 40,000 square foot type space, very similar to what our speculative building would be at the Brickyard Exchange. And that's basically an 85,000 square feet. That's going to satisfy a handful of tenants, but we continually see more and more demand in that tenant size with candidly just a very limited amount of inventory that would be coming into the space. And then additionally up on the north end where we talked a little bit about, I'll try not to, I've learned after watching, so hopefully you can see this on the plan. Look at that.
Are you telling me those two big buildings at 178 square, are you proposing warehouses there?
I think it would be a lot more of the office warehouse type job creating space, very similar to if you look at kind of what the parking counts are here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Again, orientation aside, this is not intended to be a distribution type product. This is intended to be, the office warehouse, the types of businesses similar to a Cherney that's going to have, some type of finish requirement in the 20 to 30%. When I say finish, office / manufacturing, there will be some component of warehousing. I mean, that's part of the nature of this type of space. In the reality being, businesses have changed in the standpoint of how they start and how they grow. In a lot of cases, they're looking for space that offers a combination of both office, manufacturing, light manufacturing, and some form of product in warehousing that this type of space would be responsive towards. Does that answer your question, Mr. Mayor?
Proceed.
And then from a concept standpoint, we talked a little bit about, this office building. I mean, this is really nothing more than a geographical explanation of how these buildings could be oriented on the site. Admittedly, the boxes and the forms themselves are they're very fluid still. But, in response to what the typical medical profile is and the associated parking that the medical users are typically looking towards, that's kind of in response to some of the previous interest that's been expressed at this site.
This top here, the corner northeast section there, I mean, that's your front door. That should be if a office building is go there, that's gonna be the front door as you come up the grade there to see that. That should be a spectacular building if that's going to be a office building. That's my idea of how something like that, something visual, very nice that stands out and says hello, that we're in the community and here we are.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, and that's going to be a combination of what's going to be informed by that ultimate user to maybe manage expectations. We're not at this moment in the market, and this has nothing to do with Shakopee, this is just the greater Twin Cities market. You're not seeing in large amount any type of speculative office buildings that are going up. This would be a lot more informed by a user that would be oriented based on the location. And yes, that entrance experience at that corner, we take that very seriously, and that would be informed a lot with the architecture and the orientation of how that building would lay out. And then, as we spoke earlier, just I specifically wanted to use some of these examples, less so about showing what buildings are, but more so to cite active buildings that Opus has developed that's currently up in the marketplace right now as we speak. The top one, I mean, we'd be more than happy to provide to staff, finished photographs. That one in the bottom right-hand corner, if you can see my pointer right here, that's a building that we just recently built and fully leased out in St. Paul. The one on the top is in Egan, and then the one I just mentioned earlier is the one that we're doing currently right now in Arbor Lakes. That's at the old dump site that we've cleaned up. So with that, before I turn it back over to John at Stantec, I certainly would welcome any questions that the council may have.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael.
So, Mayor and Council, so you have a concept before you. I think what the applicant's looking at is not the literal concept in front of you, but business park office on one corner, townhouses on another corner, and two types of single-family homes, traditional single-family home and the villas at the kind of density that we're looking at. That I think everyone agrees the streets, trails, parks are going to have to move around, as will the roads once they get into the process. But I think before they move forward, they're just looking for general consensus that business park office, some kind of medical on one corner, townhouses along the northern side, and then a mixture of a couple of different styles of single-family homes is something that the council would support going forward before they kind of take everything to the next level.
Councilor Whiting.
Thank you. I like the idea of having, I especially like the villas. I think we have a need in Shakopee for that single level. Some people might say the senior type housing. I won't put that name on it, but that villa style, I think that's a definite need. The commercial, I do agree with the mayor. That is a focal point corner, and I trust Opus will take care of that when a final developer does come along to do something with that. So that corner along Mystic Lake Drive there, that could be a hot spot eventually, and it just depends. It's pretty close to some other good retail and other commercial areas, so I would support this concept.
Could I just wrap up? We've had some interest from some orthopedic clinics and some others kind of continuing on from that baseball academy, so, and then also a bank and another. So there is interest on that corner. Again, this was just a cartoon in terms of showing square footage, but we certainly heard your comment. We're really here on a handshake tonight. I mean, everybody's here just basically with the agreement to kind of test the waters, if you will. And what we're looking for is just a sense from the city that this basic concept makes sense to you, because we're going to need to go into a very, very expensive development process. And Braun Engineering is going to have to do hundreds of borings. We're going to have to analyze those borings. We're going to have to do environmental analysis. We're going to have to go through multiple grading concepts. And so these folks have to be confident enough to enter into a purchase agreement. So that's really why we're here tonight. We'll do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental audits, and then we're going to dig into the details, and that's where we're going to figure out street configurations and all of those kinds of things. So I know it's not a typical thing to be asked to comment on a concept and for us to continuously say it's just a cartoon basically, but that's what it is at this point. So thank you for your patience.
I think that idea of concept review is exactly what it is. It's a concept review, and some effort has gone into this. This property has a long history, and turning that chapter to what it ultimately endgame can be is I think a great opportunity. I mean, that's how I view it. I guess I do have some concerns, probably because the time on the planning commission and trying to understand the end game of the property, topography was actually going to be an asset of this development in an area that doesn't have a lot of topography, right? The mixed use center that this has been guided for, and now this change, I'm going to struggle with a little bit. Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to shop? I have to, we're in today's planning world, we're trying to get away from car-centric. I always thought, and I still think, that corner, this development, this area is a prime piece for all that. The concept about what appears to be a warehouse, I think we have enough warehouses. They look big to me at 178. Yes, Cherney is building a headquarters, but I think that building is slightly smaller. And I certainly, the issues that the Planning Commission brought up and the staff, connectivity to the rest of the neighborhood, the trails, obviously if there's not going to be a park in this area, the trails to get somewhere. Also groundwater, I know that over the years, the most bottom level of the gravel pit was close to our groundwater source, and that was a point of monitoring for a long time, so.
12 feet.
I think now that the blasting and gravel is gonna be done, and then maybe raising the floor, at least, obviously, and you'll have that information for us to protect that base of that floor, so, those are my comments. Also, I think, if there's some private roads on this, which I read in the packet, I think in our community, we've kind of gone back and forth on private roads, and we did have a development that had private roads in a homeowners association, and that development's been around for about 20 years, and their road's falling apart. Yet the association doesn't have enough money to do a complete rebuild, right? And that was a point of contention for that development. They wanted the city to take it over, and so as these development with homeowners associations age and their infrastructure ages, it's important to look 20, 25 years out for those major items that some homeowners might not be thinking about. Other comments? But I think we all agree that we want to see a successful development, especially in this marketplace. Opportunity to bring this acreage online it's for me, very exciting.
Thank you.
What's the densities of the townhome proposal?
10 units per acre in that net area,
10 units per acre? Okay,
Just for the townhomes?
just that area.
Just the townhome area
the density is 10 units per acre,
for this,
right?
yeah. This is more, single family would be probably around 3, I think.
Right.
3 to 5 or something.
And it's going to change.
I'm not necessarily opposed to what the use is per se. I totally agree with that, not only that corner, but actually fronting 83. There's a lot of traffic on 83.
Oh, yeah.
A business could benefit from that
Right.
exposure. I think that traffic connections is gonna be important, the trails are gonna be important, connectivity. So I think Mr. Mars hit a lot of good points. The one thing I will say that might be a little bit disagreement is, I don't know what the market is seeking as much as the professionals that you have around you. So when you stand here and say, or your team stands here and says the market's looking for this type of a product, I have to accept that because it's just not my area of expertise. I get where you want to have a one-stop type shop where you can have your office or sales location with your small manufacturing with some storage space. That makes sense to me. I know that we don't want to see these cookie cutter type large warehouse look. Our design standards have changed, and they've changed because of that reason. So wish you the best.
We could put ARC on one of them buildings.
We wish you the best, and we'll see how this moves forward.
John, what are the next steps from your organization? When would we see you back?
We will, we already have a proposal from Braun Intertech, so we would need to exercise that proposal, accept their proposal, and they would then start doing all the borings, which they would complete over the course of the next several months. And then once we have that data, we'll start analyzing it and get into the detailed design process.
Okay.
So hopefully we'd see you in the spring.
I think that the comments from the planning commission, the staff, those are some really good points that they brought up on their map. So get busy and come on back.
Okay, thank you.
And to your whole team, thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Moving ahead, 11A, Liaison Administration Reports, Councilor Brennan.
I went to SCALE, the SCALE Executive Committee meeting and the SCALE General Meeting. and learned about vaping and homelessness in Scott County. And it was really good information. And then Counselor Whiting and I completed the week 2 of board and commission interviews. And we have another round next week for to continue on with that. So hopefully we'll bring back our recommendations at the March 3rd meeting.
All right. Thank you very much, Counselor Lehman.
February 13th, 169 Corridor Coalition
Did you get the new lane?
at the Capitol. No, we got like 10 lanes coming. Be here tomorrow. We're charging somebody else. You know, the consensus there by everybody was, on both sides of the aisle, that it's a priority, it's a concern, and that's great that they're all on the same page, but where the issue is there's no solid theme of how to address it. You know, there's 5 different methods of addressing it, but you know, it's something they're gonna have to work out. You know, there's a couple of, I guess there's one alternative with a federal infrastructure proposal that's floating around. If that was to come through, and this is something that I tried to push with both sides of the aisle, was if there is a federal infrastructure bill, Minnesota bipartisanly needs to have their folder together to say, here's Minnesota's proposal.
Right.
With whatever projects they are, because I know there's a lot of projects in Minnesota, worthy projects, including 169. So that was one thing I tried to preach, and I think Minnesota should have a backup plan that if they can't get something through for 169, we've got to figure out how we're going to address this, because the problem is not going away. Good meeting, very successful. Attended Spuck tonight before the council meeting, so it's my long day, I guess, because of President's Day. We all saw the melted down box online. That's a switch box, not a transformer.
Okay.
There's 118 of them in their area. There's 8 of 3,000 that have failed throughout Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota. There's a TSB, which is better known as a technical service bulletin on them. Apparently, there's certain ones that are getting moisture inside, and the moisture content of the oil inside shorts out or something. Not really sure how that all works, but like I said, 8 out of 3,000 in 3 states, so they're evaluating that, checking it. The company's coming in to do some research on it. You can't check the moisture content in the oil of these switch boxes in the wintertime because it has to be 59 degrees or higher in order to check. So that one is now inside warming up so that they can check it and send it off to a lab or something. The encroachment issue for the fence for Mr., what was his name? I don't have my notes here, but they did approve that. There was a question on that. Atkinson, Mr. Atkinson. Apparently that's like a joint encroachment agreement with the city and the utility for that fence. One of the questions came up as if that is, goes on to a future purchaser of the property, if that owner would sell the property. In reading this agreement, it goes with the land, but I would think if it's future landowner could take the fence down if they wanted to, I suppose.
So they approved the right on top of the water main as is right now?
Nope, the city actually does that along with the utility, and it's 5 feet, I believe, is what the agreement is, 5 feet off of that. Okay? The point that they bring up at every meeting is to have our city administrator, their administrator, our mayor, and their president get together. Apparently, that's a really hard thing to get to happen. So I guess I would like to make a motion directing our mayor and our city administrator to meet with the president of the utility and the manager of the utility.
Well, we're trying to tee up a joint meeting.
Well, we are, and we can't agree on meeting to figure out what we're going to be discussing, what information is going to be provided, so nobody's blindsided, what the ground rules and decorum are for the meeting, and all these other type of issues. I know that there's been pursuit of this joint meeting by our staffs and mayor and president. For some odd reason, that can't seem to get done. So, you know, short of this body directing our administrator and mayor to make this happen, it's probably not going to happen. So that's why I'd like to make a motion to direct this to happen. And if it wants to die for a lack of second, that's fine.
Motion on the table.
For the point of discussion, I will second the motion. And I'd like to comment. I think it's premature at this point before our discussions in closed session.
Okay. Got a motion in a second, so.
All right, Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, we've been trying to make this happen for some time now, and I was going to cover this in other business. The issue is that the commission wants one thing and the council wants another. And it appears that the commission and the utility director believe that I am the issue. So I wanted to bring this under other business so we can get this resolved one way or the other. And in the future, I think it's best that we have these brought specifically in front of council to discuss openly so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about and there is no misidentification of what the issues are. We've been very clear about what the council wanted. We brought that forward. SPUC refused to abide by what the council had desired. So, you know, in order to take the personalities out of the issue, my thought is that this should be openly talked about so the public also understands what we're talking about and we can move forward.
Counselor Lehman?
And that's fine. The problem is that the last time there was a public discussion, council sat at this level, had them at a lower level and spoke down upon them and had information that they weren't privy to prior to the meeting, and it's really hard to respond when you don't know what you're going to be attacked with. And that's two-way. That works both ways. So it's kind of a preset. It's no different in my eyes as council rules of norm or decorum. We know what the expectation is going into it. So that's all I'm asking for is, and that's why I'm saying that, and I'm not asking this, they asked me to ask this, and I've asked it before. So it seems to me if everybody wants to get together, why doesn't everybody get together?
That's an excellent question.
We've been trying to
So
set
now
that-
we have the opportunity to do this, and we still can't seem to get it done, so. A for effort. There's a motion on the table if you wanna.
All right. And Counselor Whiting, you said this is premature?
I think it's premature until we have the next discussion, and that might lead to going down that road at that point. But
Do you want to table this, or?
I would vote
I
against
don't-
it. I wanted to have the discussion in public, so that's why I second the motion, but I would not be voting for the motion.
Mr. Mayor, rather than voting on that motion, since it's been seconded, if Councilman Whiting wanted to withdraw his second, it would just die and you wouldn't have to vote on it until
I will
later.
withdraw the second then.
Okay. And then my last item was at the February 4th meeting, utility. I was kind of shocked because I read their packet and it said the city was pursuing legislative change at the state level to allow the city to take over the utility by a simple majority, not take over, I think it was abolish, by a simple majority. And I don't recall us having that conversation, giving that direction or making that motion. So I asked staff to refresh my memory, and I got I think it was July 2nd meeting, which I was not at. I was out of state and of last year. actually 19. So I did watch that tape, but there was no mention of seeking a state legislative change. So I'm kind of dismayed at how that, when we asked for this to happen.
I think we were looking at all our options, but Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a discussion about options, and there was quite a lot of discussion on that, and also on the meeting prior to that. You know, my responsibility is to pave the way for council to make an action, much like when we build a road. We don't come before you without having a plan as to how to build the road. We certainly have looked at all options. We are still looking at other options, frankly, that if the council ultimately decides that that's what they want to do, they're going to have multiple options in order to consider. And then they can make that decision at that point.
Fair question from me would be, is there any other state legislation that you are trying to achieve that I'm not aware of?
Absolutely. I've been trying to get rid of fiscal disparities forever. I'm going to continue to work on that. We're talking specifically on home building issues and affordable housing currently. And yes, I'm working on a lot of issues when it comes to legislation. That's what a city administrator does.
Well, normally, wouldn't it be things that we as a body have decided we want to do?
You can certainly direct me to do that, but you generally have ultimate goals that you're looking to achieve. In order to do that, you set the boundaries and the goals. And then my job is to try to find a way to achieve those goals. That's what a city administrator does.
All right.
Okay?
So there was motion on the table,
It died for lack of
a
second.
second, now withdrawn. There's no motion or motion on the table, off the table. Are you going to proceed with your liaison report?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. I have no liaison report this meeting. Councilor Whiting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council Member Brennan mentioned, the interviews last week and are continuing till we follow up with all of those. MVTA is tomorrow, and that's all I have.
Councilor Contreras.
Thank you. Just for school board, the school board appointed Tim Brophy, who took his oath of office and was officially seated on the Shakopee School Board. Brophy has volunteered and served throughout the community on various committees. Most recently, he served on the district's Community Facility Task Force. Brophy's appointment will expire December 31st, 2020. And then Mr. Brophy is filling the seat that was vacated by Mr. Reggie Bush, who resigned effective December 31st, 2019. Also, for more information, you could visit the school website.
Excellent, thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Reynolds, our administration report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. As you know, the police department has launched an initiative called Lock It Shakopee. And it really is designed to try to prevent those most easily preventable crimes there are. And that is to lock your homes, lock your cars, and for God's sakes, please don't leave your keys in the car running. And it, you know, Chief Tate is here, but I wanted to give a little bit as to how this is going, at least, you know, this started in mid-January, and as we look at things, residential burglaries of unlocked houses and garages, in 2019 we had 2, in 2020 we've had 0. Theft from unlocked motor vehicles, in 2019 we had 17, so far in 2020 we have 9, and that's for the same time period, by the way. And theft of motor vehicle where it's unlocked and keys were left in it, in 2019 we had 9 at this point, and in 2020 we have 4. So we're down in every category. You know, we'll hopefully see that even continue to decrease, but it just goes to show you what informing people about very simple things that they can do to ensure that they're not crimes or victims of crimes, you know, that kind of a program actually can work, and so the police department is going to continue doing that along with our communications department, and great to see those results.
I thought the video was very creative and.
Yeah, it really
Congrats.
was. And we actually put a PSA essentially out before that because a guy was dressed as a burglar and to say, hey, if you see this guy in your neighborhood, it's okay, he's with us. So, yeah, I think that there's been some fun had with that as well.
That's it. Mr. Reynolds, thank you very much for your report. I guess I apologize to my colleagues. We're 11, we'll move forward to 11B. I guess I thought I forgot it. Our city bill list is here for our review. And then item number 12, is there any other business before this council?
I have.
Councilor Brennan.
The Savage has been promoting commuter rail, and they would like to continue to promote commuter rail, and they're looking for cities and organizations around Savage to support the commuter rail from Northfield to Minneapolis. And I was wondering if we could invite Mayor Williams and Brad Larson, the city administrator, here to speak on what they're doing.
Okay.
Do you want a motion or second, or?
You can do it by consensus.
Are we making a motion or directing staff?
He said I can do it by consensus, so I'll go with that.
Mr. Reynolds? Direct staff?
Yes, sir, we can, I'll give Mr. Larson a call tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll hear back on that. Thank you. If there's no other business, we would move forward then, and I would recess. Mr.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I make a preliminary statement. The law does allow, on occasions, councils to meet in closed session to discuss matters protected by the attorney-client privilege. And the reason for that is it's important that public knows what's going on, but it's also important that confidential communications can be shared with the council. And this is one of those situations. So my suggestion would be just to make the motion that's on the subject line of the staff memo to close the meeting and get it seconded, and then we can close the meeting.
Councilor Whiting.
I'd like to make a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3B to discuss matters protected by the attorney-client privilege pertaining to a potential litigation by the city relating to actions taken by Shakopee Public Utilities Commission at its December 16th, 2019 meeting.
I have a motion on the table and a second by Councilor Contreras. Further discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We're in